All right. Welcome back, ladies and genitals, to Supremacy 1914 Universe. And this is by popular demand. People have been asking about what's going on with the update, the most recent update. A lot of us have been playing in beta games, sort of playing around with these new updates. These updates have gone live, is my understanding. But there is some question about, you know, on previous games, on games that have even started, because a lot of us are noticing in previous games, active games, that we're seeing a change in the hit point display. So there are some changes that are filtering into current games. This is going to be less of an issue as we move forward, obviously, and as older games die out. But I have not noticed in older games, for instance, the new graphic for transport ships for infantry at sea. So not everything is moving forward with this update immediately and proactively to previous games. But it's time to dig in. There's a lot of really good stuff in here. So let's just look through this together, see if we can make sense of it all. And and then again, we need to have a discussion in the comments below and also in our Discord. I have in my Discord server, I do have a channel specifically for uh, beta update commentary and discussion. So feel free to jump over there. I'm going to go ahead and share the link to the Discord in the details in the notes for this video. So come on over to the Discord and talk about it, or talk about it in the comments below as well. That's fine. So I think maybe the biggest thing right now is size factors. Don't limit anymore. Now, during the beta, they toyed around with this idea of limiting stacks to 20, right? So after 20, you would start to lose efficiency on your attack damage and so forth. This seems to say that there is no limitations when stacking multiple units of the same type together. I would suggest that this means that there is a linear increase, unit by unit, for as many infantry as you want in a stack. Now, this is controversial to me because I liked the old system. To me, it physically made sense, right? So you can only put 5,000 infantry units on the front lines dealing maximum damage, right? Then the additional 5 to 10,000 behind them would deal partial damage because they're further back. There's just limited room on the battlefield to dig trenches and, put people in place. So I liked those efficiency limitations. Now, of course, we all corrupted that by doing the flower. And by doing the flower, we sent infantry units to other locations, and then they could all attack with their own stack independently. And that flew in the face of physics, because if you did your flowers properly, you could have, 100,000 troops attacking the same location at the same time with full efficiency. And that doesn't make sense physically. You can't fit that many people into the front lines of a particular battle, right? So that was a kind of a gross corruption, which people will do. We're all going to game uh, the rules as much as we can. I mean, we all are adhering to the same rules. We're dealing with people who are flowering, right? So we're going to flower, but none of it made sense in terms of actual physical warfare. Um, so I know that Bytro was experimenting with the idea of anybody in the region that's attacked will be lumped in and penalized in the same way, but it looks like they've dropped that. I think they've dropped that now to just be like, go ahead and just attack. If you have 100 infantry, then they're going to attack with 120 power, right? 1.2 per infantry. So I think that's what this means. If you know better, let me know in the comments below, or come over to the Discord. Let's talk about it. This may be just a way to simplify everything and eliminate the whole flower thing altogether. I think that there is room for improvement on this because, again, I think we all know, if I have, I've got stacks of 1,000, right? So that's 1,000,000 people, right? 1,000 troops is 1,000 thousands, which is 1,000,000 people. You cannot attack one town with a million people in the front row with full power, right? Some of them have to be in the second row and the third row. So maybe I'm certain there's room for improvement here, but what I'm understanding here is that there's no reason to flower ever again. Um, in fact, you're better off if your power is still full power, you're better off attacking in a big stack, because then any return damage is distributed evenly amongst that stack. And we'll talk more about that later in the rules here. So, corruption, money production is no longer decreased when owning many provinces. That's interesting because I didn't know that it was corrupted in the past. So that's gone. The at-war morale penalty. Declaring war is not inducing morale penalties anymore. This is huge. This is really, really big. And I have to say again, to me, I feel good about that, because really is are workers going to work less hard because you're at war with somebody? Like that's the presumption, right? You're at war with another country, so your morale goes down by 5%. That affects your productivity, your development of resources, your development of units. And I don't know if I believe that that is actually accurate to the human condition. If anything, you might get a boost. You might get a boost in production if you're at war. But anyway, it seems to me like what they're doing is they're negating that entire thing. Very interesting. That's big. That's really big. Like, we've had times in the past where, you know, everyone in our coalition will declare war on someone just to penalize them, just to make them hurt, right? So I think that era might be over. Mobilization, units' movement speed and strength are no longer lowered on the first game days. I didn't know that was a thing, but it's no longer a thing, so okay. Morale units no longer gain or lose extra morale for inflicting or suffering casualties. So this is something I knew, that units suffered losses in the sort of mechanics of warfare, whether they're winning or losing. Apparently, that's no longer a thing. So flowering exploit, this is a follow-up on that first thing up there, is that there's no longer any benefit to splitting melee armies into smaller armies. Damage caps cannot be circumvented in this way anymore. So this seems to suggest what I was talking about earlier in some of the earlier beta versions that I've been practicing on, that I've been playing in. They were saying that, like, look, if you attack with 5 groups of 5, the game is going to consider all of them as the same group, right? It's going to gather all of the armies that are attacking in the same region into the same place and consider them part of the same army. So there's no longer any advantage to splitting them up. So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but any commentary on this would be welcomed below, in the comments below or in the Discord. Glad to talk about this. There's a lot of gray area here that we need to flesh out. We need to figure out moving forward with these big changes. We've got a lot to do. We got a lot of work to do, a lot of research and practice and playing to do to figure out all this stuff. This is a big one here. Last stand, smaller armies do not take reduced damage anymore. This was why people did lemmings. This was why people split up their defensive forces into stacks of 1. This is why. And apparently this patch is going to make that obsolete. So I kind of love this, because I love gaming the system and little tricks or whatever, but it's like, I'd rather just play a straightforward game, right? Like, just do your strategy, keep your borders tight, reach out, do your diplomacy and play a good game. With all these little, like, tricks, it's like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I'll do it if it's there, I'll do it, because you have to do it. But it looks to me like they're trying to get rid of lemmings and flowers, and I'm okay with that. I really am. Like, just stand with what you have, with your armies of the size that you have. So it looks like this is a way that they're going to be reducing some of those trick methods of defense. Overkill. Armies do not gain extra damage anymore when exceeding enemy damage by a lot. I agree with this. I am, if you look at some of my videos, I'm a proponent of overwhelming force. I think it's one of the doctrines that I follow a lot, is if I attack you, I want to attack you with a lot more than what you have. And of course, the theory being that I destroy more per round so that you can attack me back with less stuff. It's very simple. But I don't think I necessarily deserve some sort of point advantage or some sort of artificial advantage because I'm attacking with more damage. Just give me the damage I earned that I have, and that's fine with me. Okay, so we're moving now into, that was all the removed things, and I think there's some really good stuff in there. But let's look at what's been added to change things. And there's some like some really detailed, interesting things here. There's a lot of room for discussion here, so I hope we can open this discussion and start thinking about it. And then as we move forward, continue to play this game and flesh it out and figure it out. So combat system has been changed. So damage is exchanged as shown in the unit stats with a random factor of up to plus or minus 10%. So have you ever attacked with 5 artillery and nobody died? And you're just like, what? Like you're angry? So I think this is changing that. Okay, so if you have 5 artillery attacking in, then you're going to do the damage that is listed, right, for 5 artillery. And what is that, 10 damage? I believe is it 2? That I don't know, that is ridiculous. But anyway, the point being that if you're attacking in with 10 points of damage, right, then you're going to do maybe 9 or 11 points of damage, but you're not going to do 0 points of damage. And that's what I hate. It's like I got 5 artillery attacking 1 infantry. The attack goes through and nobody dies. And I'm just like, what? Like, what? And that brings us to the second year. There are no empty combat rolls anymore. So there's no misses, right? And I love that because, look, when I have 1 artillery, that's not 1 gun, right? It's probably like 20. I don't know how many we decide goes into a unit of guns, like, right, a troop of guns or whatever we want to call them. But it's not just 1 gun. There's a bunch of them. And within that whole thing, some are going to hit better and some are going to hit less. But honestly, come on, like we're not throwing slingshots here, you know. There's a lot of ordnance hitting the field. So I love it that there's not going to be any empty combat rolls anymore. You're going to do damage, and it's just going to be plus or minus 10% of what is literally shown. And so I like that. There's a randomization factor, but there's hopefully not going to be any more of this. We've all faced it where like we're landing a huge artillery barrage and like nobody dies. And we're like, what just happened? It's very frustrating. So hopefully that's over. We'll see. So this is something too. We talked about this earlier. The reason that flowering is no longer going to be a good thing to do is that damage is evenly distributed between units of an army. So don't break your 100 into 10 groups of 10. Keep your 100 people together because whatever damage gets done is going to be evenly distributed between all of those units. And people won't start dying until they lose their hit points after that distribution occurs. So that's the next thing here. Units die depending on the amount of incoming damage compared to the remaining hit points per unit. So again, it's almost like another slapdown of the flower. Just don't do it. Don't flower anymore. And at one point, so here's where I think we talked about that 20. So new damage limit for the whole army contribute 100% strength up to 20 units. Above 20 units, the strength added by additional units linearly drops to 0 until the army's size reaches. So this is really big too. I talked about this earlier, and I've been in the beta games where we were told that stacks of 20 matter. So let me put it all together if I can. All right. Let's say I have 100 troops and I'm going to go in, right? So this makes me think that I should go in with 5 stacks of 20, so that I should flower, right? However, according to what Bytro has set up here, it will still be counted, even though it's 5 stacks of 100, since they're all landing in the same place, they're all attacking the same place, it will still be considered a stack of 100, okay? Which means that only the first 20 will have full strength, and only the first 50 will have any strength at all. I like this, as I've mentioned, because there's a limit to how many people can get into the front line to attack one particular target. So if this is true, and I'm not convinced it's true, people can say it's true, and then there's some kind of, you know, workaround. I don't know, but we'll find out moving forward. If this is true, I like it a lot. I really do. I like it a lot. And so if I have 100 people, my best bet is to go ahead and attack in with 100 people, knowing that only the first 20 get the full attack and the first 50 get any attack at all, but knowing that having 100 people there, 100 troops there, is going to distribute the damage against me evenly and make me likely to lose less troops. So, again, a lot of gray area here, a lot of room for discussion. So, I hope we can have a vigorous discussion about this and moving forward, really start to flesh it out, try it out, figure out what's really going on. Buildings now take damage when a province is conquered. That's interesting. This to me means maybe a little bit of sabotage, a little bit of the people who are in those buildings as their province is captured. They can do a little bit of sabotage. I'm for that. I've always been for that. I don't know why you can't destroy buildings as you leave. That is a very practiced warfare technique, sometimes called scorched earth. We saw it with the Nazis in Russia, where they were just destroying railways as they move through provinces, salting the fields, burning crops. I don't know why there isn't more of that in this game, except for that it's difficult to force that to happen. So I get it that logistics in the actual code could be a difficulty, but I like it that buildings take damage when a province is conquered, because that to me means a little bit of sabotage is happening, and I approve of that. Morale-based production and construction is a linear curve, and I thought about making some graphs here, but I thought, nah, you can figure it out. So the point is here, when you're producing and constructing things with 100% morale, you get 100%, 110% speed. So that's good. That means that's actually pretty cool. I'm not sure if that's the case right now, but I like the idea of that. If you've got full morale, you're building things a little bit faster even than you normally would. 80% morale is 100% speed, and 0% morale is 20% speed. So you can imagine a direct linear connection between 0% morale and 80% morale, right? From 20% to 100%. So if your morale is, say, 60%, right? You're going to be more at like what, 80%? And maybe I should have made those charts, but anybody can do it with a spreadsheet. So your X and Y values, 80 and 100, your X and Y values 0 and 20, and then a direct line between those will connect it up on the map for you so that you can see what intermediate values might be. But there is a baseline of when you have 0% morality, you're going to be building things at 20% speed. 80% morality, you'll have 100% morale, not morality, damn it, morale. You'll have 100% speed. And I'm sorry, guys, I do sometimes use the wrong word choice. Sometimes I'll switch out popularity and morale, and I don't mean to, but I hope you'll forgive me and just know it's just a word choice salad sort of thing. Auto recruitment has to do with infantry recruitment. It's the same sort of thing. 100% morale, 100% speed. If you're down to 0% morale, it's 20% speed, and there's a linear connection between those two things. So as you move from one point to the other, from 0, 20 to 100, 100, there is a linear connection. You could actually do that on a spreadsheet easily to determine intermediary points. What is it at 40% morale? What is it at 60% morale? So forth. The idea being, though, that all of these things are going to be affected by morale. And we knew that, but I like it. It's delineated. It's linear. It's easy to understand. Same thing here, 100% on resource production at 100%. 0% morale gives you 20% production, and then a linear connection between them. I do like the health-based unit movement speed. That's something that's new, and I like it. If you're at 60 hit points or above, you're moving at normal speed. 0%, you're moving at 20% speed. And so there is that linear curve between 0 and 60%, between 20% and 100%. So again, make your own table. If you've got graph paper, it'd be really easy to do. Same thing here with their health. Exact same situation, except for that when you're down to 0 morale, you only are at 50% damage that you do. So 100%, you do 100% damage. At 0%, you do 50% damage. And then the linear curve between there is pretty easy to understand. So let's just say, for instance, halfway between 0 and 100% is 50%. If your morale is 50%, you do halfway between 50 and 100, which is 75%. So the linear association is much appreciated. It's very easy to understand mathematically. Okay, expansion morale penalty when conquering a lot of provinces. This is new. So this is, my understanding is it's no longer a distance from morale, from capital only. It has to do with how many provinces you have. And I like that. Anybody who studies history knows that one of the things that defeated the Roman Empire was just the sheer number, the massive acreage. It was so big. And after a while, an empire becomes so big, it's difficult to manage and your morale goes down. So there's going to be a penalty of initially 6% for all provinces owned. So for instance, you start with 8 provinces, your penalty is going to be less than 1%, right? But once you move up to higher and higher numbers, let's say you have as much as 100 provinces, 100 provinces could end up being half of that would be a penalty. So that would be a penalty of 50, but we see that the max penalty is limited to 35. So once again, I do love this. I love the idea that morale is going to be tied to the size of your empire. That is completely legit. It makes perfect sense in terms of actual human history and warfare and experiences with empires. So the penalty here is now limited to 200. I'm not sure what 200 means, since distance is calculated by time spent traveling in this game. So I really wish that it had been like 1 day, 2 day. I don't know what 200 means, although I imagine it means 200 kilometers. That bothers me for a couple of reasons, because so let's say you're in a country, you're in a province rather, that's 250 kilometers away, right? So you're past the range where you're going to start to accrue penalties. Doesn't it matter if there are railways between you and the capital so that you can get there a lot faster and get back a lot faster? So I like the idea of time over distance, because that too means that if you're running an efficient empire and you've got railways to all of your remote locations, that they suffer less of a penalty because they're closer tied, right? That's what railways do. It changes your people who are walking on the road at 20 kilometers a day or even less to people who are riding on cars who are going 90 kilometers a day. So anyway, but what this does change is that there's no penalty under 200 kilometers. And I love that. I love that idea. We're shifting the penalty over to the size of the empire and a lot less tied to that distance away from the capital. And there's also going to be a maximum of 35 to that potential penalty. Okay. AI places their troops a little smarter. We've talked about this in a few past episodes. They're going to be prioritizing borders and valuable provinces that have many buildings. We're going to hate that as players because we like dumb AI. Buildings are hidden in fog of war and provinces scouted. This doesn't seem like a big deal until you move down here. Once a building is revealed, the level is revealed, but that's temporary. But here, this to me is the big change here. When a building construction finishes, a newspaper article won't be generated, as it would defeat the purpose. So some of us, the only way we can track people who are goldmark spamming is by literally looking at the newspaper. I don't think we're going to be able to do that anymore. No more building construction located in provinces anymore. So that's going to be interesting, but it does make sense. Why would you know about a level 3 factory building in a place that you have no vision whatsoever in? So it's going to make it a little harder to prove people who are spamming gold marks, but it also is a little more realistic. Building damage and province morale damage. So this is a couple things. Units have dedicated building damage value, and that means they're going to be specifically damaging buildings at a specific rate. That's good. That will also affect the morale of that province, so the damage to the morale as well. And then this I like a lot. Buildings and province morale only get damaged when the province center is attacked. So if you're having a battle on a road way outside of the center, it's not going to affect that. And I approve of that 100%. Like, who cares if a wheat field gets cratered, how's that going to damage my workshops in the city center? It's not. So this is a good rule change as well. Okay, naval damage has its own category now. Units on water converted to transport ships. I love that. Airplanes who are transported without airfields have dedicated graphics. I still have not seen these yet. I haven't moved far enough into a beta game where I can see. I'm really looking forward to seeing the air transport trucks. I haven't seen them yet. I've seen the water transport ships, and they're really cool. So healing costs develop a little bit differently. Linear, the price is static with linear price increases so I think this has to do with gold marks, reinforcing with gold marks. It's going to change a little bit. I think it's actually going to make it a little more costly, which I approve of. Now, this is a big thing that's kind of cool. Workshops and factories are now separate buildings. So if you've played in the beta games, you've seen that where you're having to repair a workshop and also repair a factory at the same time. And so I don't really understand that, because my understanding was always that your level 2 workshop, they just build some more facilities and add some machinery and it becomes a level 1 factory. But this is leading us to believe that no, you have to have a level 2 workshop to then build a separate building called a factory. You're using the materials and the tools inside of the level 2 workshop to be able to build this new building called a factory. They're separate buildings. I kind of approve of this because to me that means that that's more hit points that can be absorbed if somebody's attacking your city center. In other words, a lot of us know, the noobs will build a fortress, right, on a fortification on a particular province. Those of us who know this game will build a workshop, level 2 workshop, and then a fortress. And then if we have time, we'll build other stuff, because that's more stuff to absorb damage so that your fortresses won't be the only thing receiving damage in that attack. So this means on some of those rich tiles that have lots of material, we now have level 2 workshops, as well as your factories, as well as anything else that might be there to absorb damage. So interesting stuff. So balancing adjustment, we're almost done here, folks. You've hung in there good. So balancing of all units and buildings was adjusted in order to make new mechanics work. The premise was to deliver a similar feel as before, with reliable and easy to understand outcomes. So the first thing that happened here is that hit point values and damage values will multiply. So in the past, if you did a damage of 1.2, you might see that now you're doing a damage of 20. Or your hit points might have been 2, and now you see that it's now that's 20. And so the idea is that by multiplying these, they allow for more granular balance changes. And I love that. What that means specifically, of course, is that by increasing the overall amount of damage and hit points, you're allowing for more subtle and distinct amounts of damage to be served from various regions, various units, and whatever. So I love that. It makes a lot of sense. Obviously, moving forward, we're going to have to see some more patches, because there's going to be, anytime you do something this massive, there's going to have to be updates and patches that will correct minor things. And this is going to require a lot of the active players to be present and vocal and play those games and give that feedback to Bytro. Many units then got individual treatment and balancing adjustments in order to make them more worthwhile. So refer to the unit and building stats presented in the game. We're already seeing those changes. Just be aware, be conscious. Don't depend on previous understanding of damage and hit points. We're now moving in, and a lot of us are like, we've been doing this for a long time with these old stats. It's going to take us a while to get used to these new stats. And yeah, no doy. That's exactly what's going to happen. We're going to have to get used to these new values. But I, for one, approve. I think it's a great idea. The idea of being more granular, more specific, more detailed about the kind of damage that's done, I love it. So finally here, additionally, values for certain mechanics got updated as well, such as damage inflicted by spies or revolts and strength required to suppress revolts. So those of you who love that old spreadsheet, we all love that old spreadsheet. I've got it linked in a lot of my videos that all those tables put together that had to do with damage efficiency and defense efficiency and all of that stuff, number of people you have to leave behind to suppress a revolt according to the morale of that territory. I got to say, I think this is the official end of that spreadsheet. I don't think that spreadsheet's going to have any value moving forward. I hope some intrepid soul will put together a new one because that thing was gold. Moving forward, I don't think it's going to be useful anymore. All right, that's it. We're at the end of this. And I would love for anybody who has more to add to this discussion, please comment below. Absolutely get on our Discord. I'm going to link in the description below that Discord. There is a channel specifically for talking about the new mechanics. Figure this stuff out. Let's help each other out. That's about it for us, guys. So again, please spank the like button here. But even more importantly, if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe. And again, go ahead and jump on our Discord and become a part of this important discussion. My goal here, I've got about 700 subs right now. My goal is I want 100,000. I want a huge community. I want us to form a giant community that is given to, our entire purpose will be to master this game and other fun and interesting uh, takes on this game within our community. We do put together interesting and weird special games and meme games. But more than anything else, like this game is awesome and you know it and I know it. And we need to unite together and continue to. One of the things I love about this game more than anything else is that you can never be a master. You're always learning. And so that's why we're here. We're here to learn together, support each other in that idea. Moving, it's like chess, right? You can always get better. So thanks for checking in, guys. I know this was a long video, but thanks for hanging in there. I'll see y'all next time. Adios, amigos.